The Peugeot 205 is an icon of 1980s and 1990s motoring. However, it got its most amount of fame through the GTI. However, today in front of us we do not have a GTI. We have an immaculate and modest 1.1 Mardi Gras edition. And today we're going to be having a little bit of a look around this and a bit of a drive too. So first off, let's access under the bonnet as usual. Pull that little tab there. Lovely sound shutting those doors. And then you put your hand in somewhere and there's a little lever. And that holds itself up. There's no gas struts or anything, there's no little sticks to prop it up. It literally just holds itself up, which is fantastic. Anyway, that's aside. Underneath the bonnet you've got your jack in case you need to replace your wheels if you ever get a puncture or something like that. Washer fluid, lovely, easily accessible just down there. If the camera will focus, there we go. Battery located just here, you fill in the oil just there. Dipstick here in green right at the front of the engine, so that's easily accessible too. Got your alternator just down there. And right at the bottom of it, you've got your oil filter, which is actually better accessible, well, better accessed even from underneath. Bearing in mind this is a very small car designed in the 1980s, there's actually quite a lot of space under here. Obviously with modern cars I'm more used to seeing them full of plastic covering up literally everything that's important. But in here it's all quite open, all easy accessible. You can even access the back of the lights quite easily. However, you will probably have to take the jack out to get onto the driver's side headlamp. But other than that, it's very simple, very easy. I do like this little stick that holds it up though, that is incredibly useful. As you can see underneath the bonnet there's some sound deadening just here. Looks very nice, keeps it all quiet, although it does have a nice wrap to it. More on that later, heard that as it starts up to move over here. Let's have a look at the interior on the 205. Inside the interior of the 205, it is incredibly simple. There's nothing too complicated in here. You've got on the dashboard, you've got your little binnacle with everything you need to know. I like how it's been split into two with all your warning lights and everything up here. And on the lower section, you've got obviously your speedometer, dead central. You've got a clock, so keep time with your meetings. And you've also got your fuel gauge, which of course you're going to need because obviously cars need fuel, unless they're electric, but this is not. In here, in terms of storage, we've got a fairly small door bin, but it's enough to hold a bottle of drink. You've also got space for your breath mints. And down here as well, you've also got electric window switches, which is rather nice. Something I didn't expect in this. I thought it'd be wind-up windows, considering the mirror adjustment is fully manual, using the little stalks here. But yes, that is a very nice, neat little touch. Also, tiny little door handles. You've got speakers just located here in the door. Loving the pattern on the door card. That is amazing. I love it. We're moving on to the center console then. We've got all the things you could possibly need. You've got direction of fans. You've got, I think that's recirculation and fan speed, which is obviously useful to have. Obviously quicker, slower. Your temperature for it. There's only a very small area which is cold. Obviously no air conditioning on this car, given the age, but you can't expect it for a car of this age, of this class of car anyway. Just down here you've got your fog lights, rear screen heater and hazard warning lights. Quite an entertaining little noise. With this, pull this out, you've got access to your ashtray and 12-volt cigarette lighter, which there isn't one in here at the minute, but that's where one would go. And down here you've got a radio. This one is not standard. This is a aftermarket unit from Continental. Of course, other radio manufacturers are available. But it does look rather period. It fits in here nicely. It doesn't look out of place. It doesn't look wrong. But down here then, we've got a little storage pocket here. But the owner of this car, David, I've broken it. I haven't broken it. This has just come out. He's modified a little ice cream tub, he was telling me, to fit in to that gap so he can store things in it. So when he's sat still, he can put bottles in here and use it as a cup holder. And when he's on the move, he can put house keys, cash, change, other little things like that in there, which is obviously rather useful to have. Just up here on the dashboard, You've got a little slot to store little tiny items in. In fact, if I get my phone, it'll fit in quite nice and neatly up there. As well as that, we've got a glove box down here, which unfortunately I can't open for this review because the lock is broken on it basically, and the only way to do it and undo it is screws, and I haven't really got a screwdriver on me. But if you've seen my Peugeot 208 walk around, be assured the glove box on this is pretty well the same as that. What you see here, you only get about that much of it for space, which it's not brilliant. I don't like that feature. Anyway, in here, the seats are really comfortable. They are so soft and squishy. I don't think I've ever been in a car with seats softer than this. It's quite remarkable, basically. It's also a nice place to be. You've also got a nice, wide, bright sunroof. It provides a lovely place to sort of sit. I love the quirk and charm of this car. It's really sweet. You've also got this little light up here, which you revolve to turn on and off, which saves a space for a button. Yet another cool feature of this car. Awesome, let's go and have a look in the back. Right, getting into the back, I've had to move this cushion because I wouldn't fit otherwise. This seat is currently in my driving position, and as you can see, there's not a huge amount of leg room for me, but it'd be enough for a short journey in here. Foot room, again, not a huge amount of it, but let's face it, you're not really going on too long a journey in this car. Headroom though, not a lot of that really, only a hand's width for me, so again, but bearing in mind cars back in the 80s and 90s were quite a bit smaller than their modern counterparts, I don't think it's too bad in here. I believe you can seat 4 people in the back of this car. It's a nice place to be though. I feel enclosed, cocooned, it's nice. You've also got a little ashtray in the doors. There's one also on the passenger side as well. So if your kids want to start smoking, they can start putting their ashes in there. Don't smoke, kids. Anyway, little wind down windows in the back, but they nicely wind down. It's nice and smooth. Little manual door locks. I like it in here. In case you can't tell, I really do like this car. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the rear space in the boot and see how big it is. Looking into the boot then. There's quite a lot of space in here actually. It's really good. You've got a massive boot. Underneath, is there anything under here? No, this is the floor. In terms of a spare wheel, I believe it's underneath the car, which it is. It's in a little cradle underneath there. On this particular car, you don't get a boot light, so what David has done quite cleverly is bought just a little battery pack light, which you flip the switch and it comes on, held on with Velcro or magnets, which is brilliant. The seats in this split fold 50-50, so you get plenty of space this way. Personally, I'm not quite sure how big the boot is in terms of litres in this car, but you can see just how big it is for yourselves. It is rather large. You can get a lot of stuff in here, and even more so when the seats are folded. Obviously, the rear parcel shelf will come out as well, which gives you even more space. It's a really well thought out boot design, this car. Also, you got your windscreen washer bottle in the boots for some reason, so considering there was quite a lot of room underneath the bonnet, I'm not quite sure why this has been done. Either way, that's there. So this is the boot. I'd say it's rather nice, rather practical, rather good. Have I made it plain? I'm really liking this car. Anyway, we've had a look at some of the more practical features of the car. Let's take it out now for a bit of a drive. Welcome viewers then aboard the Peugeot 205 Mardi Gras. When this was in pre-production phase, the 205 was called the Project M24. Now, as with other cars we've reviewed on the channel before, cars are obviously given concept names, project names, whatever, just so that way then other companies can't really catch on to what that particular car company is doing. So for this, it was designated Project M24. There's often a bit of a misconception that Pininfarina designed the 205, it's rather 80s boxy-ish styling. However, it does have a very nice curve towards the rear. There's often a misconception that Pininfarina designed that, but the fact is they didn't. You see, Peugeot had its own in-house design company, or working with Peugeot, and they also had a bit of a partnership with Pininfarina at the time. And Pininfarina, they're extremely well known for designing extremely pretty bodies on cars, and basically they designed and penned a sketch to Peugeot and said, this is what we think your next small car should look like. Peugeot quite liked it, but they had their own in-house company design their own sort of style for the car, and between the two companies they sort of design ideas backwards and forwards in a sort of competitive, friendly competitive manner, I shall say, until the 205 was born in this rather lovely and now iconic shape. However, although there was a bit of misconception about the whole 205 range being designed by Pininfarina, one car they did design in the 205 range was the Cabriolet. The styling proved successful and extremely popular amongst peers, and at the end of the day, Peugeot, between the years of 1983 when the car first entered production and 1998 when it finally finished globally, they had sold 5.2 million cars, which is a lot. When this car came on sale in 1983, it was a huge hit, as we've already mentioned, but towards the end of the 80s and early 90s, it needed a little bit of an update, a bit of a refresh, shall we say. So in 1988, Peugeot gave it a slightly different dashboard. They look a little bit more up to date by the time. And in 1990, they gave the car a few marginal changes in the exterior, shall we say. They put on clear front indicator lenses. They removed the sort of rather nice looking rear grille that gave it that distinctive look of the time. They also changed the rear light clusters, which, why? They look really good. I don't think there was anything fundamentally wrong with them before, but again, they just wanted to update it, make it look a little bit more modern, a little bit more new, a little bit more 90s, shall we say. But with the facelift, it wasn't just visual changes, they also made some changes to the engine, and the engine became fuel injected single point, but they also had to obviously hit 1990s economy standards and emission standards, which meant they had to add a catalytic converter. Now when the car was launched, it was obviously to rival the large successes from Ford with their Fiesta, Renault with the 5, Volkswagen with their Polo, and Austin with the Metro. And really that market didn't change all that much, but in 1990, of course, you had the incoming Renault Clio, which of course replaced the 5. You had the Mark III Fiesta, which was, although fundamentally the same car underneath as the Mark II, it had changes. It was more modern, it was up to date, so Peugeot obviously updated this to match in with that. And of course, they also had mildly updated versions of the Austin, now Rover Metro, and Volkswagen Polo, which had also been updated through the years. We've just come off smooth tarmac onto what is quite a rough road, and of course French cars known globally for their comfort with the suspension. And I can safely say with the 205 it is no different. It is extremely comfortable. Barely feeling all these bumps and potholes and everything underneath. And the seats, my god, the seats are comfortable. Whilst we're on the topic of comfort, I can confirm the seats are incredibly squishy. They sort of hug around you. It's an interesting way, because I think the seats in my Renault Megane are extremely soft, but these are just another level. In fact, both myself and David, the owner of this car, who's kindly letting me drive it today and is with me in the passenger seat now, he thought the seats were broken, and I thought the seats were broken at first, but no, this is just how they are. It's amazing. The styling of the 205 was an instant hit amongst fans. It was amazing, it was different, it was something completely out there that hadn't been done before on a small car like this. And the thing is with that, it was so popular amongst Peugeot with the 205 of course, Peugeot themselves used it for the rest of the range to help bring up the styling standards of those, make it look different, make it look cool. This was a cool little car. The 205 came to the UK in 1983 in September, so just a few months later than France, obviously the home market. But the 205 ended its sales in the UK a little bit earlier than France did. You see, in the UK, sales ended in 1996. The final cars were on P-Reg over here. And that was because of declining sales. And so, by the time this car came on sale, the Mardi Gras, this was the very final version of the car you could buy. You couldn't get a GTI, you couldn't get any of the top spec models, you could only get one car from Peugeot with the 205, and that was this, the Mardi Gras. Now onto the business then of how it drives. Underneath the bonnet on this is the 1.1 litre. This is fuel injected, so no carburetors here, no chokes, no anything like that. It produces 60 horsepower. It'll propel you from 0 to 60 in 13.9 seconds, which, funnily enough, is a tenth quicker than the 1.6 automatic version of this car. We're talking some serious Formula 1 stuff here. A tenth matters. The car is extremely light. It weighs so little. And that makes it reasonably quick. It's not exactly slow. I mean, it's obviously not going to be as quick as a GTI, but it's still a lot of fun. Of course, when you pair that with the handling, this has got no power steering, so it's direct, and it's also very predictable. The brakes, they're also rather sharp for a car of this era, of course. Modern cars are obviously going to have a lot sharper brakes than this, but this is not bad at all. One point of interest with this car for me, having driven this for a little while now, is the gear stick throw. There is quite a bit of a throw. Currently in 5th, pull it down to 4th. Let's put it this way, you'll not be shifting it through rather quickly, but enough you can have a spirited drive, a bit of a hoon as it were. You can have a lot of fun in this car. MPG then, combined you're looking about 54.3 miles per gallon, and urban 37.7, which again is a really good figure for a car of this era. Okay, these cars are not necessarily the most aerodynamic cars ever built, but they had little economical engines, of course, because they were so light. You don't need a lot of power to get them moving, which of course really helps with your fuel economy. This car, as I've said earlier, has been incredibly well kept. It's reasonably low mileage, so there's no rattles and bangs to be worried about. Obviously I know that can't be said for every single example of Peugeot 205 out there, but this one, certainly flying the flag for them. How do we sum up then the Peugeot 205 Mardi Gras? It's an incredibly well put together car, it's extremely competent, it's nice to drive, the seats are incredibly comfy, steering is predictable, yet light, a little bit heavy when you're at a standstill, but when you're on the move, perfectly acceptable, adequate. I can see why so many people enjoy them. I can see why Classics World really enjoyed their little diesel version of this car they had, which was the Junior, if I remember, not the Mardi Gras particularly, but you know what I mean. Either way, I've really enjoyed my drive in this car. I actually adore it. It's got such a quirky little character. It's sweet. I kind of want it, but I'm not sure it's going to be sold anytime soon. I haven't exactly got any extra space for another car at the minute. But
I like Panda.
No, not selling the Panda. But I love this car. This car is a great little example of a 205. You can see why they were so popular amongst people back in the 80s and 90s. Anyway, let's go and pull up and round off this video, shall we? I can really see the appeal with the Peugeot 205. It's awesome. I really like it. The steering, really light. The pedals, also really light. It's nice, light, as a body that is, and nippy. It's also really fun. I think I've made it plain enough in this video that I really like this car. Because I do. It's fabulous. It's amazing. Also, one point of interest with it, Sacré Numéro. Sacred number in French, and that's because 205 is sacred to Peugeot because it essentially saved their business. It's brilliant, I love it. The Peugeot 205 is an icon of motoring for a reason. It's a really cool car and they sold exceptionally well. Obviously the GTI is the most well-known one, but if you're looking to get a cheap, affordable, modern classic car, consider this because it is quite frankly amazing. Seriously, I adore this car. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video on the Peugeot 205. If you have, please consider leaving a like. Comment down below. Let me know what's your favourite thing on the 205. It's a great little car. And of course, if you want to see more car-based content, don't forget to subscribe because there's going to be plenty more videos on cars to come here. Anyway, thank you very much for watching once again, and I shall see you in the next video. So until then, farewell.